possible, and I'm excited to see whether Meliodas and Null continue to group up and try and take down these duos in the mid lane.
And already we see adjustment spawn coming in to Isurus' second game of the day. Immediate Jace ban. Does not want to give Zeros a chance. Of course, Zeros, another carry-style top laner for Bugax to go up against. The Karthus going to be banned as well. Now, Audi has played this twice over the course of the season, but not really known as a Karthus player. Still, PVB going to give him that respect.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think PVB want to play a very fast style game, and Karthus is one of those champions that if those quick plays go wrong, you start feeding kills into the machine, can really take over, and doesn't really show all that much. Getting rid of it just shows that, you know, want to have maybe a little bit more of a standard matchup. But triple bans towards Audi, that is just a statement right there. We are not... we are so confident in our early game that if we remove your best early game player, we will dominate this map.
And I like the 3 solo lane bans on the opposite side. 2 very different stories. Audi, of course, as you mentioned, he was the guy that defined the pace so many times for Isurus Gaming, that brought them out of difficult situations, that turned games around from them, and he was where he needed to be in mid lane and on the bottom side of the map to help get his teams the small advantages that they could. But Sylas was left up and available, and that means PVB get that priority first pick, and Isurus are going to need an answer here. Well, this could be very difficult, very fast.
Yeah, it certainly could be the case. I expect that Sylas to be going top lane as well, unless a hard counter matchup is locked in. Sylas is one of those champions, however, Dracos, that just keeps getting touchdown, you know, knockdown, knockdown. But ultimately, if you can get it to level 16, you can steal 2 ultimates during a team fight. Then going to be an impactful champion nonetheless. Also has really good utility in the split. Can unlock a Sejuani pick as well because it is melee. So I still like the flexibility of the champion. Interested to see whether we see full AP, which has recently been a big trend, or whether we see more of a bruiser hybrid now that the nerfs have come through. I would expect full AP.
Interesting, though, as now the Rise has been locked in. If Zero's still comfortable taking that matchup onto the top side of the map where the Rise will be used, such an incredibly powerful flex pick, if they want to use it that way.
Really good matchup into the Sylas as well, in my opinion. So if Bugax is comfortable in the matchup, can chase the Sylas around the map a little bit. And then, you know, the fact that they banned away so many junglers and Audi still got his, you know, one of his better champions, in my opinion, is pretty impactful.
And now the question is, what does Meliodas do? Because we've seen what he can do on the Jarvan. That has been taken away. What does he go towards next?
Lee Sin. I hope it's a Lee Sin. I really want Meliodas to just continue the fire with fire kind of trend and lock in Lee Sin. The other option that jumps out is going to be Gragas, but, you know, obviously if that comfortable in his pick ban, that they'll knock him down a priority. You know, instead give Big Coral and Pallet, you know, 2 of the strongest bottom lane champions, and make Isurus Gaming choose whether they want an AD carry or support. I would expect support to come out right now in kind of that response.
And the Braum, of course, a solid answer will mitigate some of the early game pressure that will come through on a very powerful lane in the Lucian Galio. And now the question is, does Isurus just use both of their bans to try to limit Meliodas' pool? Could take away the Gragas, of course, one of his favorite champions is most played this split, the Lee Sin as well. Will they just target him out, or are they willing to let some of his stronger champions continue and instead maybe focus bans on a mid lane?
Yeah, I would expect to potentially get rid of the Zoe. I would like to see that happen. She is so successful at nullifying lanes, and I think Saya needs to be a carry player for this Isurus Gaming lineup. Interesting that they ban away LeBlanc, just in case they did want to leave Zoe up. One of the best responses is going to be a LeBlanc pick for Sayo there, but obviously potentially want to force a little bit more of a utility versus utility matchup.
Of course, the Rise, still a champion.
It can go mid, yeah.
Both Saya and Bugax have played, but not a ton. This has not been a high priority for
Isurus. That's strange, right? Because Aftershock Rise is good into LeBlanc. I mean, if you're able to play it, like, has very good trading windows into it. Also can beat her out in the split late, which a lot of mid laners can't really brag against LeBlanc. So if that is going to be a mid lane Rise, certainly interesting to see that the LeBlanc is the ban that they elect for. And now that you've banned one mid laner, you kind of got to ban the second one as well.
I feel like it has to be the Zoe. The question then becomes, what does Null go to next? Will it be something like the Syndra, champion who can, you know, without a cast animation on that Q, just poke at the Rise in lane? Zoe will be the takeaway as predicted.
And this is the thing about Isurus Gaming. Like, you sit there and you look at a lot of what they do, and it makes sense, right? They're a team that's pretty easy to follow, and I think that, once again, even though they're not all that electric outside of Audi in the early game, I think that their mid to late game also makes sense, but just not able to get rolling in that previous matchup against Fenerbahce. So I think that they've made some good adjustments here into this Fongvu lineup, and the comp feels different enough that maybe they'll be able to shake off that feeling of, you know, how disastrous that last game went as well.
But still, the focus remains on the AD carries after the Vars. They've taken away the Kai'Sa as well, so both a strong laning option and a little bit stronger scaling option for this team.
Kai'Sa, Ashe, both still available, both seen a lot of use down in this bottom lane. Wonder whether we see something a little bit more funky. Ezreal also, it's a pretty good matchup, honestly, into the Lucian. Partnered with Braum, unlocks 1-3-1 comp, which I think is even more important, right? No one can really get priority over mid lane after Ezreal gets 2 items if he is partnered with that Braum, and that means that they will be able to rotate towards this Ryze lane, try and set up their side lane for a little bit more of success this time around.
But of course, a lot of it depends on finding a lead in at least one of their lanes in the early game. Most likely will not be the Ezreal lane, given the lane dominance that you can get from a Lucian and a Galio. But now, Gragas, one of Meliodas' signature picks, coming through for him here in the jungle. And if it's anything like the Jarvan game, Isras have to give this Gragas some respect.
Historically, my favorite pick into 1-3-1 as well. Because if 1-3-1 kind of do that annoying sit at turret thing, you just chuck a Gragas cast at them. It's so non-committal. It's in.
Yeah, that's going to be Yasuo. And I'm going to be honest, it could go top lane. It could go mid lane. They have 100% the flexibility to flex both the Sylas and the Yasuo between whichever lane feels more appropriate. And combined with something like a Gragas with a Galio, the knockups are there. Sylas's E-stun on the Abscond Abduct is also a knockup. And now Sylas has the freedom to steal a Nautilus ult too, so things are going to be very explosive once level 6s come around for both of these lineups.
Yeah, it certainly is. And even though Yasuo is melee range, he kind of does play melee versus melee matchups very well because he gets the attack speed, which means that he trades better inside the wave. And then his Q is kind of that ranged ability that is frustrating for Nautilus to have to play around. So I think that Seiya here is going to have to be very careful how he plays it. If they do ever pin Null down, however, they've got enough CC to just blow him up with that damage. But, you know, level 6 Yasuo, once again, with a level 4 or 5 Gragas flying into your lane can be certainly potent. The biggest surprise for me here in this Isras gaming lineup is Bugax. When you fall down that heavily in a game, to then say, hey, here's a Ryze, we're going to empower you in a carry versus carry matchup against a team that we've just seen completely destroy a top side of the map in the Bombers. You know, not transfer any of that agency of carry, not put him on something like an Ornn or something and just say, hey, get to team fighting stage. I think that that's a very courageous call if you're the Isras gaming lineup. And my fear is that the hometown heroes in Fongvu are going to really make Bugax pay for this Ryze pick.
And I think it's totally justified after that first game, like you mentioned. But I do like it when coaches and teams are willing to put the faith in their players, when they're willing to double down. But as you said, I think courageous after that first game is the appropriate word.
Because I was talking to Azael about this the other day, actually, and a lot of coaches do just specifically draft the matchup, and they kind of take the player out of it, right? And they say, you know what? The best answer to the Sylas is going to be the Ryze. It matches it at every stage of the game. There's no real ult impact steal coming through there. Let's give him the matchup. But in saying that, it is almost impossible to not look at the form of the first game each of these teams have played and favor Zeros in this matchup.
Absolutely the case. And now we have to take a look at how the early game will unfold. This is PVB on the blue side. ISG, Isras Gaming, going to try to find their first win here.
And this was a jungle matchup that I was most hyped for. I wanted to see Oddie play against Meliodas because, in my opinion, these were the two gankers out of the junglers that will try and dictate the pace of the game. Then I was excited for Volkan going up against Karay because I thought those were the two junglers that pathed really well for their own farm. Well, we've seen so far Meliodas absolutely take over the game against Volkan. And then we've seen, you know, Oddie not have a bad performance by any measure, but certainly get outshone by the MVP of last game in Karay. So now we get to see how kind of Oddie is able to bite back with that. A much more aggressive matchup for him, and I think that that's the right call to make if you are the Isras Gaming lineup. But once again, you know, you just have a look at how Game 1 trended, and, you know, the presence that Meliodas had on the map was pretty impressive.
And a small keyboard issue will hold us off from getting into game. We'll get that sorted and be back in shortly, but I like this a lot more because I do think that fighting fire with fire always feels better to me when watching a jungle matchup, especially as a spectator, because you can, of course, go for the scaling option. You can rely on your lanes to survive, but it never feels quite as kill heavy as I would prefer. And now it feels like maybe they both go to the same lane. Maybe they put their attention in different places, and that kind of decision making ultimately is always going to be interesting to follow.
Yeah, and the thing is I really like how Oddie played around the Aurelia pick in particular, and I think that they have now drawn a lot of pressure towards that mid lane. We're going to see Gragas Yasuo played into it, but once again, I feel like Oddie and Seiya certainly have tools to be able to navigate this lane quite successfully, and You know, you have to track it as the game progresses, but would not be surprised if, once again, they try and fight over River by going through their mid laners and then trying to open up the rest of the map, which, you know, you'd have to say that Seiya has the experience in these big games to be able to, you know, do that for the Isris Gaming lineup.
And it does feel like the huge burden of execution is on the side of Null on this Yasuo pick, in the sense that if Nautilus ever gets the setup, if he ever lands the hook, the wind wall at that point is irrelevant. Yes, you can block the hook with the wind wall. Yes, you can stop that play from happening. But once it starts, you're dead as Yasuo. That's the reality when you're even in that matchup and there's a jungler present. However, if you find the lead, and that's no longer an option, suddenly you can take over the entire map on a champ like Yasuo.
And the reason Nautilus is just such a fun pick is, like, for the champions that just won't stand still, you know, Aurelia and Yasuo, they're just flying around everywhere. You just press R on them, and eventually they got to stop, right? And I think that it's just such a satisfying experience to just be able to hold them still for long enough for someone to hit them. And obviously that's going to be Seiya's job, right? As Null tries to do what he was able to do in game 1, you know, open up the map, dash around, he's going to be able to answer that a little bit better. I also think that it's important to point out that Warangulus and Slow had a pretty successful game, I would say, last game. You know, they weren't able to carry it in the end, but they were certainly doing their job. And I think that in game number 1, Big Coral and Pallet struggled against FBI and Rogue. You know, maybe the one weakness of that lane was the fact that they fell behind, was the fact that they allowed the Bombers to have the fool's hope of a win condition as that game progressed, and see whether that is going to be an area to continue to track, because so far both of the wins have had 80 carries falling behind.
And I'm curious to see how successful the Ezreal can be, because we've seen the auto spacing for Langelis be really good on the champions like the Varus, as well in his playoffs run with champions like the Ashe. Ezreal, not something we see him go to nearly as much as those very auto attack focused carries. And can he get the same impact? Can he consistently land those Qs? Can he keep his DPS up in these fights to actually match a champion like Lucian? Or is this just going to be, you know, ISG looking at their strong point in the map and saying, that's great, we're gonna sack you in the early game, we're gonna give you Ezreal, we're gonna be willing for you to just kind of go even and be that scaling up option and put their attention elsewhere.
Yeah, and both of these 80 carries have kind of similar play windows in the fact that if they are able to stay in combat and keep spell weaving, their DPS, their damage per second, is so high. In saying that, as soon as you're out of combat for a little bit of a second, you know, maybe Ezreal passive falls down or you're not able to get the resets of that relentless pursuit for the Lucian, you start becoming a hell of a lot more, you know, stationary, less mobile. The damage does fall off quite quickly. And when you're talking about things like, you know, wind wall being able to block that on one side, or just a Nautilus blocking it on the other side, you know, I would say that both Big Coral and Warangulus have to play this well.
Absolutely do. We are now back into game 49 seconds. Slowly ticking up here. And unlike a lot of our games where we've seen these explosive level 1s, it appears just a defensive 5-point to start.
I do like this, however.
Good bit of damage. Not going to burn the flash. Probably a bit too aggressive at this stage of the game. Yasuo level 1, not incredibly strong. But Zeros already using both spells as well as the Aftershock there to get a massive trade on a Bug Axe, forcing an early stack of the Corrupting Pot to be used before the laning phase even starts.
You see, Bug Axe has not gone for Aftershock either. So in the extended trades, when he's able to proc the phase rush, going to, you know, be able to zoom around pretty quickly. However, Zeros in the early game should have the advantage of the more stat-heavy keystone, I guess is the way I would put it. Makes you very tanky.
Oh, good ward kill there. But already, the Ezreal using the level 1, of course, still incredibly strong overall to find an advantage. But Meliodas, yes, Smash is the appropriate. It was a Hulk-esque performance for 1-19. 9K plus A at 15. So if you're expecting a slow game, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the man to let that happen.
Yeah, and if it is a slow game, you would have to say that Isris Gaming are going to be the main beneficiaries of it, right? Because PVB play the quickest League of Legends at the play-in stage, and, you know, we keep going back towards, is it a standard kind of game? Sure, they don't really play, you know, funnel Nocturne jungle or anything like that, but is it still, like, really damn oppressive and fast and in your face? Absolutely. Very interesting that Bug Axe has gone the W start, even though he has Phase Rush. Not going to be able to generate any form of push off that, and means that he will still get level 2 first, but not be able to go aggressive.
And maybe playing a little bit defensively here after the previous game, just wanting to interrupt some of the level 1 trades that come in from Silas. Of course, 2 abilities at level 1 between the, you know, the dash, the shield, the second dash, the stun, the passive. It's just Silas level 1 is oppressive.
Yep.
Maybe looking to mitigate some of that. Has level 2 for himself now, and bot lane kind of as expected this early on will be in favor of Seiya with the Corrupting Potion, as well as the Inspiration Tree secondary can sustain a push pretty well.
And I think more importantly, right, just has AoE with a shield and a stun for a auto attack. So, you know, you talk about the loaded
Sylas
level 1 kit. I would say that Nautilus is pretty good at level 1 as well.
Loaded early game kits is what we're seeing here. I think there's a world where on a longer lane, maybe Yasuo can extend a trade to get more value, but otherwise it's going to be tough. Seiya, though, needs to back off here.
In some trouble. Might have to burn the flash, actually, Dracos.
Stunner's going to come up in a second. Will get knocked out. Meliodas is here as well. Jungler now coming in. Seiya's so incredibly low, but Audi is on the way in. It might be too little too late. The shield now trying to turn it back. The Windmill not going to block anything here relevant in the matchup. Null now running Seiya, trying to turn his attention back to Meliodas. Meliodas wants to get something back. The heal now coming in. Corrupting Potion immediately. The Time Warp Tonic heals him up a bit, but still First Blood going through. Audi's going to get turned on, but no, Audi manages to make it out. The slow comes through. Null has to be careful about extending this. The red buff, the double buff's there. Misses the Q. Audi, will he keep going for the play? Conqueror is stacked, and TP now coming mid lane. Null is going to be forced to back off, but a 1-for-1 in the early game.
So junglers get the kill and mid lane pushing back. Meanwhile, top lane.
Just continues to extend trade, wants a little bit more damage, stays after the aftershock, so Bugax gets a bit of damage back, but already forced to burn all the corrupting potions immediately. Bot lane, though, Big Coral trying to go for a little bit more. War Angelus just deleted slow. Next on the list, the Unbreakable, just too little too late to save the 80 carry. Massive early game performance from bot lane.
And PvP just continue to throw skill checks. You know, top lane, they win it. Mid lane, we trade 1-for-1. Bottom lane, let's just roll the dice there as well. We have the additional combat summoner, and Big Coral and Pallet able to stand up in this lane. Will be a freeze here. But to go through this one again, I thought that Seiya was in a little bit of trouble, because look how far Odi is coming away. But Odi does rotate off the cam very, very quickly. Means that Seiya, who is quite tanky at this stage, is able to survive for the longest time. And Odi's damage is very real with Conqueror. Nearly able to pick up the kill on Null. Turns this one around and is eventually able to get it. Very good coordination, I would say, from Isurus Gaming's mid-jungle 2v2. But this is the impressive thing. We said Big Coral and Pallet kind of struggled in game number 1. While they're playing the aggressive lane this time around, they turn this and they pick up the kill for themselves.
And you just have to respect the Galio all-in, and it just feels like Isurus thought they had the advantage on the trade there and just stuck around for too long. Lucian still has a ton of damage with press the attack, and that multi-man taunt is just insane.
And this is the thing about Ezreal lanes, right, is they are safe enough as junglers once again meet.
Now Audi going to go for the engage onto Meliodas. Meliodas with red buff already taking so much.
Hook is up.
Trying to move in. He's trying to find his way out. Hook will connect. A kill. Now instantly picked up there. Meliodas a little overconfident in that exchange. You're holding your breath. You're ready for that all-in top side.
Yeah, I certainly am. I'm just waiting for Zeros to have enough of this rise. But I'm really impressed so far with, you know, the attention that they've put towards Seiya's lane. I said that the thing that Meliodas did really well was open up the map for Null to be able to get involved. Well, Seiya and Odi have shut that down straight away. So we're going to see a different game. You can see 800 gold delete at 5 minutes in is a pretty big deal, and Seiya growing a CS advantage as well. That means that if Odi now can, you know, maybe take his attention elsewhere, becomes even more impactful, Draco.
Absolutely does, and now level 6, the lane advantage that Zeros has been able to build up for himself. Doesn't get amount to much, just there's nothing to steal from the rise. Once Jarvan shows, though, can get something back with the hijack. It's going to be difficult to kill Zeros in the exchange. They do not have a source of damage to reduce the healing, but now they're going to go for the all-in. Meliodas on the way up, level 5 coming in for the Gragas. Trying to find the Realm Warp. Please, the Cataclysm is going to come out waiting. Just waits for the lineup. Gets both. Oh, the double drops. It could not be more picture perfect. Just stand in the Realm Warp and line it up for him.
And one more time, the patience out of Zeros to hold the ultimate, because it doesn't stop the Realm Warp and clean up the double kill. As a jungler, there is no worse feeling than when you have to help out a lane and it gets you killed in response. Bugax needs this lane to hit, otherwise it's going to be frozen and he's not going to be able to come back in. But they read the side of the map that they need to go to. Once again, Meliodas key in this play. And Zeros just cleans him up with the dunk.
And you can see it's just not even close. And at this stage of the game, even in the 2v1, it doesn't feel that favored. With the Kingslayer healing so much in extended exchanges with no grievous wounds, it will be difficult. But now Adi going to try to get something from Meliodas. Just the cast going to be used as he tries to extend this one. Meliodas still playing so aggressively despite dying in the 1v1 versus Adi earlier. Knows he has the XP advantage. Zeros is going to try to make it out. Abscond, abduct. Meliodas going over the wall. The guaranteed knockup is there. Adi going to grab another kill, and just generally a much scrappier game than we saw from PVB in game 1.
Yeah, certainly is. And you can see that kind of the same pace of game is being... Hold that thought. Maybe a dive coming in bottom lane as well. Null's down here.
Yasuo, no way to stack the Q, though, is going to put him in a bit of a difficult position.
They do have Justice Punch.
That is going to be the knock up there. only way to set up the ult currently. So if that one connects, it will be huge. Taunt does connect. It's going to be the knock immediately. The follow-up Windwalk to come out and block any damage, but isn't really even needed as they manage to grab the double here. Beautifully played Pallet, escaping with just a sliver of life.
Rotation is coming out. Oddie as well as Seiya want to continue this play. They need to be able to hit back.
Cataclysm not available. The flashes, though. Flag, drag, flash could secure both of these kills, but they're splitting. They know they can't afford to take both, so both players are pairing off their respective opponents. Null will be the turn and the focus. Creep wave there, not going to be enough. Trying to dash to safety, just buying a bit of time. Double knockup, not going to be enough. That's going to be the Dragon Strike finding the kill.
And you can see that Oddie's starting to really scale up into this game. 3-1-1 will go towards the Warrior, even though he's gone Conqueror. Generally, when we see Conqueror Jarvan, I prefer to see Cinderhulk. It's about staying in the fight for longer. But this was a really nice setup play, if a little bit telegraphed. And what we didn't see off screen was that Oddie has just altered Zeros and forced him out of the play. That means he can't follow down. So the 2 kills go across. Credit to PVB's bottom lane for turning this around, but you can see the response was always going to be here. Seiya and Oddie, that dynamic duo, setting the pace for their team. They try and go for both of them, but in the end, they will pick up the 1 and even out that trade a little bit.
Now, however, for the team, they're grouping up for the big fight. We're not even going to get a break. Replay into the next immediate fight. Meliodas really trying to come over the wall with the flash and steal. Null now on the way in. Gragas cast could be massive for this team. If Istar's Gaming stand together,
Keep the leash.
very quickly could be turned. War Angelus still alive. Cast does land on 1. Immediately the follow-up is going to be there. Galio ult as well. Seiya just going to get deleted. Major source of damage now taken out of the fight. The retreat comes in and PVB grab the dragon.
And look at where Zeros is playing. He's rotated all the way down, and he's on the blue bar.
Oddie, you are in no man's land. Dashing forward, the stun connects, and Oddie smites for health, but it is not enough. The golem resets. It is injury, or insult to injury.
And time after time, PvP just have so much more of a better idea of how to play these early game skirmishes. You need to bring people, you need to be decisive and pull the trigger. Sale was moments away from having that ult back up and available, but because they've already rotated Zeros down, just such a clean play coming out of PvP. And he's still not going top, he's bottom.
Repeat. Zeros can definitely take this one up. They're going to try to get Pallet to tank it right off the bat. War Angelus now running, trying to find his matchup against Vicoro. Not going to be there, though. Taking the kill is Pallet, and 2 more stack up for PVB.
And you know, we talk about walkabouts. Well, Zeros hasn't been seen in top lane for like the last minute, but still up in CS. Now 4-0-0. You can see Seiya and Oddie, they really want to make some plays here.
And just desperate to force, but Null has the respect to back off the tower. Not the same could be said from Isurus. It feels like they just have overstayed their welcome on the bottom side. And I mean, to be fair, do you expect the Sylas to stay out of top lane for a minute and a half?
Probably not. But in saying that, I mean, is it worthwhile when you can pick up that many kills for your team? Sure, loses 2 turret plates, but I'm pretty sure he can take the fight to Bugax now because he has 4 kills and a completed proto belt. So I really like the aggression that Zeros is showing because it is so hard to capitalize and, 1v1 kill a Rise at this stage of the game. But can he go kill everyone else? Well, heck yeah, that's what we've seen so far.
And it's only going to get more difficult from here as well, as the early scaling from Zeros does mean that a lot of those ultis are going to be incredibly powerful in the fights to come. The Cataclysm, as well as the Depth Charge or the Ezreal ulti.
And my favorite thing about group stages, Dracos, is when you see a team smash a team and you know that there's another good team backstage saying, you know what, maybe we can do that. And then, Fenerbahce come out, they play a very good game number 2, and then now ball back in Fongvu's court, like proving this is potentially a 2-horse race to come out of, Group A at the moment. Just anything you can do, I can kind of do better at the moment. Certainly not the same lead that Ruin had, but 4 kills at 11 minutes into the game, still pretty impressive coming out of Zeros.
And we have to see later in the day if Fenerbahce are comfortable playing at what has been a breakneck pace. 14 kills, 11 minutes into the game, more than a kill a minute in this case, and things have slowed down now, and it makes sense. PVB have a massive lead. They don't have to push for anything greater. They are able to zone a lot of these champions off the wave if they want to. Really only mid lane a weak point right now for Fongvu Buffalo as a whole.
And I don't think it's a weak point for Fongvu. I just think it's the strength for Isurus, right? 1-1-3 on the Yasuo. Sure, he's behind the clock on the farm. But when they unlock him into a side lane, I think they will start rectifying that. The important thing here... Oh, they go for it.
Oh, cast knock back. Power's there for the follow-up, and you also might get into that side lane a little sooner than we think, as PVB are now putting resources into Null.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I thought they were going to group up and go towards Bugax's top lane because he's sitting underneath his turret trying to clean it out again, and they really have played around Zeros' pressure point. He's going to stop this. They still can go for the play previously mentioned. But as you mentioned, instead, they throw Nola Bone and pick up another kill for the jungler, but a couple of turret plates in the mid lane. going over to the mid laner of PVB. Meliodas now top.
Continuing the dive trend. Stun will not connect. Zero's going to move in to tank the first tower shot. They'll wait for the creep wave to reset. Will they continue the dive, though? Willing to try one more time. Skondiv Duck should be up in a couple of seconds. They are completely unconcerned about this rise. They move forward. Bugak splashes out, but flashes right in to Pallets knockup. Zeros is going to grab the kill, and Audi going right in the middle of the team. But it is absolute disaster for Isurus Gaming. They had signs of life in the previous game, but this time around, PVB are not giving them a chance.
They've just taken away all good answers on the map. You can see right now, Lucian is fed enough to be able to 2v1 that lane, and now they're just using Pallet, Null, and Meliodas to exert pressure on whatever lane they want to bring under fire. This is a really impressive game from PVB, and this is what I said when, I like kind of the, not macro, but kind of the map movement that this team shows when they do have a lead. I think, it's nothing unconventional. They still take the right steps. They drop turret aggro. They wait for the support to come in place. But it just looks so aggressive and so impressive when it's executed well.
Tower dives are always a thing of beauty to watch. The high stakes, I feel like, just always elevates it, and PVB have been clean in their execution thus far. Now grabbing a Herald as well, continuing to extend their advantage, and you can see Isurus putting that attention onto the bottom side. They know the enemy T's top side. They're going to use this time to maybe try to take some camps away. Audi, waiting in the fog of war here, is going to step forward, potentially going to look for the engage on a big Koro, but just denying that back, stopping him from retreating at all. We'll let Ezreal push in. Isn't going to amount to much.
Yeah, the smallest victories there, but you got to take everything you can. Being able to trap the Lucian in lane for another wave is going to be boom. Means that potentially this dragon can be started up if they can get a good timing on it, but instead they're just going to allow Zeros to reset. Once again, Fed top lane is going back top side of the map to try and push in as far as they can before an objective. Seems to be the trend so far at MSI Dracos, but I guess a big worry is, top lane already broken. Herald sitting in Meliodas' back pocket to potentially break that mid lane will accelerate the pace of this game. And they have such a good Baron take, to be honest. Lucian plus the Yasuo are going to be able to tear that apart. So the fact that not the best range comp doesn't really matter if you have that good a team fight around the Baron area.
And honestly, when you're this far ahead, the fact that you can threaten a dive on just about any tower on this map. Tier 1 mid still up, Tier 1 bot still up. One of those will most likely be the next big focus for Fongbu Buffalo. And Yasuo is sitting much more comfortably in the mid lane now that he's able to grab that static shift, get a little bit more damage under his belt, be a bit more of a threat to Nautilus in the extended trades.
And I was impressed by how Audi played this early game, but it does seem, past maybe the 8-minute mark, he has started to slow down a little bit. And I think that's hurt him. I think that whilst he was going at the same pace as Meliodas, they looked like they had a fighting chance, right? But now the pace has slowed down. I mean, you can see how far Zeros up is willing to play up in that lane. Say they're trying to rotate towards it, they'll go for it.
Next going to move forward, finds the point to click CC, gets the phase rush, is going to step forward. Realm Warp now going to come out. Saya could look to commit here, but we'll just back off. Could use the hijack there to make it out to safety.
And I mean, they still get the summoner spell, so that's a win, but all of a sudden, that bottom lane is going to be opened up, and this is kind of you cross-map someone in a pretty intelligent way, and Fongbu just seem happy to play slowly, although now Zeros behind Bugak.
Yeah, Bugax is going to be in a bit of a tough spot here. Can proc phase rush and look to run away. Of course, no ultimate stolen from Silas means it's going to be a bit tougher to find that kill pressure. Protobelt does not connect. Zeros is actually losing health here. TP now coming in. They want to try and punish the overextend, but Abscond and Abduct to the creep will take him to safety. Fongbu Buffalo on the bottom side will use this opportunity to grab a Mountain Drake completely uncontested.
They take bottom lane turret, they're able to get the teleport out of Saya in the mid lane, and they will get the dragon. And all they burn for it is a flash and a little bit of Zeros' time. PVB showing their dominance. They're actually going to teleport back and try and keep this top lane turret alive. There are 3 members here. He should die.
Nautilus is there. Audi is here as well. Zeros is going to step forward. He's going to grab one. He's going to look to grab another one. That's 2. Zeros, I cannot believe it. Throw the Cataclysm in. Audi will grab it back. But that was an incredible turn. An unnecessary play, but makes the most of it.
Do you know what's even more impressive? He goes back, buys a Magias, and teleports into 3 members to try and get the outplay. He loses some of his stacks, but now is 7-1. Zeros is absolutely torching MSI so far.
Meliodas wants in on the big plays, will not connect anything else. Good flash out from Audi to take him to safety, but after a play like that, you have to be uncomfortable.
Look at this. This is the swag Magi's teleport to a creep. Let's see how he goes for it. Steals the Nautilus ult onto the back member, gets a double knock up, dodges out of the flag and drag, completes the kill before Sayer's ult can go across as well. Oddie, pretty fed, will be able to pick up the kill, but you have to say, message very clearly sent to Ruin there. Zeros having a pretty dominant performance.
Yeah, and this is, of course, his stats from VCS, not even his stats on this stage, which may even be more impressive. You can see a huge portion of the team's damage. The damage per minute very high as well. Not a guy who takes time playing tanks and 30% of the team's kills. You can see why massive outplays like that, definitely something that he is known for. Bugex, though, is going to step away. Zoom out there. Phase Rush not going to get proc, but will not be necessary as Meliodas casks him away. And I just don't think anyone can actually approach this Silas right now.
Well,
but maybe 3 people can.
4. There's a Nautilus coming down as well. If he stays at the turret, certainly should fall this time.
All right, he has Abscond, Abduct.
No ultimate.
There's an Ignite here as well, which will stop the healing. They're using it early just to make sure he can't get anything back. He should go down here. Slow going to find the knockup on the ulti. They will be able to grab him nice and clean. 4 members committed. They will lose a tower for it, but they do grab the shutdown.
Yeah, now potentially, however, going to be some action in that mid lane. It's a Hex Flash for you.
Threatening with the Hex Flash. Now a little bit more damage will go down. Big Koro with the wave here with the Canna potentially to do something, but 4 members means Audie's just going to have to back off instead, turn his attention to the Wolf Camp, and Bugex has to be careful. Very confident player, but can't afford to step up in that case, and tower will be traded on the bottom side. Overall, in terms of objectives, still very PvP favored, but Isserus starting to show signs of life.
Well, they at least get rid of all the stacks on the mid guys, rendering the item nearly useless at this stage of the game. So I think, you know, small victories, you have to start chipping away at it. And I think that they have recognized one of their errors, which was they didn't attack Ruin when he was ahead. This time around, it looks like they want to attack Zeros and try and shut down the strong side of the map. What I was going to say about Fongvu, however, is that game number 1, Meliodas everywhere, having such a huge impact on the overall scheme of the map. You know, maybe Big Coral and Pallet falling down a little bit. However, this game around, they really have flipped that switch. You know, Meliodas hasn't had the best performance, has made a couple of errors, in my opinion. And you'd have to say that Big Coral and Pallet have well and truly picked up that slack. They're now, you know, 4 kills combined, 0 deaths, have played a pretty good pressure game into the Ezreal Braum, which is one of the safer lanes in the game, but able to generate some kills and pressure there. And
it does feel like actually a complete shift, because you talk about Meliodas being the key in the previous game. Well, Zeros was strong, definitely, but it wasn't the ultimate factor for victory. Now he's stepping up. Now Null, the Zoe player previously, is taking a step back on this Yasuo, and it feels like we're seeing that every player on this Fongvu Buffalo lineup has the potential, when given advantages in lane, or when they earn those advantages themselves, to carry a game like this.
And that's the most dangerous kind of team, right? A team that has the flexibility in a draft, as well as compositionally, to be able to challenge. You know, this is a good team fight comp when all the pieces come together. Gragas as well as that Galio with some good dive threat. They also have fairly good 1-3-1, you know, mixed damage coming out of Yasuo as well as Sylas. So, you know, beat you in multiple ways does seem to be the Fongvu kind of MO right now, whereas Isserus have been forced to resort to, you know, let's try and delay these games to a point where the team fight becomes a possibility.
Does seem to be the case. However, now as we check in, you can see the Ezreal on a 2-item spike.
Yep.
Maybe can start to fight back. Jarvan very strong. But Gragas has 2 items as well, and for right now for the Rise, things are very difficult. Looking for that Spellbinder, it would appear. At least has the Zeros stacked. Will need that extra tankiness if he does want to go toe-to-toe with Zeros in the future.
And that's what I was going to say. There is a time in this game, actually. Hold that thought.
Zeros going to look for the 1v1 play, but the empowered route there is a big difference maker. It does consistently force Bugex out of the lane. But now they're waiting. The overextend here. However, they do immediately see the control ward and know that the play has been sniffed out. They're going to have to back off. Go for the knockup. Saya knocked away there. Ooh, taking a lot of damage, though. These tornadoes with the static shiv are so obnoxious.
And once again, get the teleport out of Bugex, so they have to wait for Sayers to come back on the fort available. He's going to have to hold down the fort. Bottom lane versus the double Infernal Drake 7-2. Sylas, as soon as they want to turn their attention towards the Baron PVB. It just becomes so hard. You know, you talk about the scaling. Ezreal, one of the best late game AD carries because of his safety and consistent damage. You know, Rise kind of uncontested in that side lane if you get towards the 4-item mark. But you're just playing so much on the back foot right now. You know, even with the fact that, as we keep mentioning, you know, that is not going to be a very useful Mejai's right now. Still just, you know, an item over his counterpart.
And that's the thing, is in another game, in a closer game, you know, what was ultimately a massive shutdown, not only in the gold that it gave, but in the gold value that it took away from Zeros, might have been the difference maker, but his lead is just so massive that it's not actually enough to turn that top lane matchup in your favor. And even then, we get to late game. Ryze absolutely can cut through. We know Silas, when there's enough damage to cut through the health bar, isn't nearly as threatening, especially when you have some grievous wounds.
Yep.
That said, you still have to execute a round win wall. You still have to find that fight where your backline just doesn't get immediately deleted by all the damage threats on the side of PVB.
Yeah, and you need to be able to force the fights as well and say it's just not that tanky. You can see a full AD Jarvan coming out as well. So just even, not compositionally, but item choice-wise, it becomes harder.
You guys stepping forward, seeing a lot more confident there, but the Kingslayer comes in, starts to dip the trades. Zeros now running. Is he going to flash over the wall? Has to take a big risk here. Moving down, a bigger fight is now breaking out as you see the top side now trading, but a flashback. The Yasuo immediately going in. The Galio follow-up is there. It is a clean combo to catch out the support, and they'll try to continue to extend the play. Now moving forward, one more stack will do it. The stun comes through for Slow. Stay on the top side. Does manage to hook his way out. Protobelt to safety, but I don't think it's going to be enough. They're chasing him down now. Slow just now getting him eliminated. Seiya as well.
And finally, it looks like they've been able to shut down the side lane split push. Zeros has to run away from Bugax, but at the same time, PVB pull the fight on a team fight, and they're able to get access towards the Baron pit. Oddie, he needs a miracle stave here, steal here. Otherwise, Isris Gaming are going to start off playing at VO2.
Bugax is moving down as well. Vision is in the pit for them. They're both pulling forward. They've gotten more access to the pit than initially expected on the opposite side. The Hex flash over the wall. Where are they going to go? Adi backing off. Bugax immediately deleted. The Jarvan is alive, but Big Koro just cuts him down. No chance for Angelus. A little late on the ulti there and denied in the end by the wind wall.
And it is just all the little things that Fongfu were able to do. They hold it at 2,000 health. They keep him out of the pit. The wind wall to make sure Ezreal can't steal. Every box ticked in this game to be able to take that Baron buff. They're 10,000 go all up. It's only 24 minutes into the game, Dracos. They're decimating Isris Gaming. You see, it looks like a catch out here. Palace has to burn the flash. Hold that thought.
Well, if Zeros ever gets on top of you, you die. The Magi is gaining its value back once again. And ultimately, what we're going to talk about is it felt like they found a fight. They won on the side lane. They thought, hey, without the healthy member of the Silas here, maybe we can come out on top. But a very clutch, very aggressive body slam flash over the wall, and the fight turns instantly.
Let me tell you, when you are 0-4, and then they have a 7-kill Silas who has teleport and you don't have teleport, if you stop him from teleporting, you feel like you've done your job. You feel like the other area of the map should be able to kind of stymie some of the bleeding. They want Bugax here. They're in behind him as well.
Backing off. Bugax still take a lot of...
And he was there, then he wasn't.
Kingslayer. Execution damage. Doesn't even get a chance to activate the Archangels there, or the Seraphs rather. I was caught off guard, Spawn. I forgot that Silas was that bad after the 1v1 previously, but now you can see what a massive lead it is, and it is a 12k gold lead. They have a Baron buff, they have the Mountain Drake, the double Infernal, and it is the last dance, it feels like, for Isris Gaming. Now Seiya stepping forward, will hook up the Galio, not the target that he wanted, the strategy. Oh man, the Galio on the front line, but the Yasuo in the back of everything is just going to get shut down here. Braum will find that gold. They're now on the retreat from Isris, but too many members are left standing. Big Koro stepping forward. Isn't going to continue on the calling. War Angelus now on the back foot. Zero stepping forward. Protobelt in. Is going to get the kill as well. And the PVB are taking everything in this exchange, Spawn. Hex Flash just for a bit of BM. They are truly feeling themselves, styling for the hometown crowd, giving them a show here as they absolutely dominate. 14k gold lead as they look to close this game out.
Game one, it was the Swag stopwatch. This time around, it's a Swag ultis into the fountain. They look to close this one out in style.
Minions from behind, PVB moving up to potential favorites in this group with a 2-0 start.
The Buffaloes are terrifying. There is no scarier animal in this group right now, and there's a couple of them running around. But the Sharks just weren't any match for them on land, unfortunately. It's funny how that happens.
I can't keep up with the animal metaphors, I'm going to be honest. I was like, all right, I can try, but you nailed it. And it's true. Fongfu Buffalo look absolutely untouchable today. Now, we will see them up against Fenerbahce later today. Maybe Fenerbahce will also be 2-0, depending on their the results of their match versus the Bombers in our next game. But you can hear the crowd cheer. We want to know how good Vietnam was, how good Vietnam on soil would be, and Fongfu Buffalo are looking so incredible.
And like, when teams start winning, it becomes about evaluating how they win. And this team is devastating.